See the whole reason we're doing this? Look how much oil. Just look at the little oil droplets, liquid droplets on each bearing. They all have little oil droplets. You can see them. Until you get out here, the PTO bearing is practically dry. Droplets, droplets. I mean, these are all, you know, covered in little droplets. Obviously, they're not bathed in oil at this point. But then you get over here and there's just no droplets. This is the PTO side, 2 bearings, and these are the ones that routinely fail on these engines. It's pretty easy to see why. Because this hole right here, this is your PTO oil hole. Look how much smaller it is. Big, 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 small. It's really lousy design, which I think Polaris finally fixed a couple years after this. This is 95. I think they fixed it in 97, I've heard. But so we're going to drill this out. This is the whole reason we took all this apart. Try to prevent that from, these 2 bearings from failing because they don't have enough oil. Just to show you the top of the crankcase, same story as the bottom. Droplets, 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 dry. No droplets. There's a lot of little markings, but there's no droplets like the other ones, because those 2 PTO bearings do not get enough oil. Alright, so I brought the crankshaft out to my trailer shop. Just going to hit it with some compressed air, clean out every bearing, and then I'll oil them up and see how they sound. Alright, so now we got our crankshaft bearings blowed out with some air and cleaned up. We want to oil them, just your normal 2-cycle oil that'll eventually be filling the crankcase along with your gasoline. Now, it's not going to be easy to just glug oil into these bearings because they're tightly packed, especially these ones. There's no room in between. The best solution I have is these little needle bottles. So I recommend you pick some of these up if you don't have them. They're useful for a ton of things in life. Just putting a little bit of oil or any type of fluid exactly where you want it on the money, and not just kind of getting some of it where you want it and some of it all over the place. So I'm going to put some of the 2-cycle oil in this little needle bottle, and then I can literally just drop it or squirt it right exactly where I want it. So All right, and then to oil the actual bearings, let's tip her up on her end. Just apply the oil into the bearing. That one's obviously the easiest to get to, the two end ones. Bearing sounds completely fine. A lot of these I had no concern about anyway, but since we cleaned them up and blew the oil out, get some new oil in there anyway. Some of these will have to hit from the other side once we flip this thing over, so right now I'm just gonna do the bottoms and just barely get some oil in there. Thanks to this needle bottle. All right, now we'll flip her over. Do our two PTO side bearings. This bottom one's the one I'm most concerned about. It was making the most noise when I was spinning them dry. Well, what do you know? Clean it up, oil it good, no problems whatsoever. Sounds completely fine. So I don't need to replace any bearings on this crankshaft. Now we are actually going to drill the oil hole bigger for the PTO bearings. So there's two PTO bearings, as you've seen when the crankshaft was apart. And this oil hole is a major failure point for these engines, because unlike these oil holes that are nice and wide and cover the side of the bearing, so the oil basically hits the top of the bearing as it's spinning thousands of revolutions a minute, and it goes down in the forces along with gravity cause the oil to be sucked into the middle of the bearing where the balls are, and it keeps it nice and lubricated. This hole over here doesn't hit the side of the right bearing. It only hits the side of the left bearing. Let me take the case off and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because we know the top case sits against this, we can measure against this, see how thick that bearing is. And then we can take our measurement over to the case and figure out where to put our hole so that will be right on the edge of the bearing we want to get oil to. So the edge of the bearing that we want to get oil to comes to 288 millimeters on this stainless steel ruler. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of eyeballing, but if we eyeball the ruler onto the edge there, and then look where 288 is, we should be able to figure out where our hole needs to be. So the top of the case, looking down, almost made it seem like the hole is actually in a good spot. But then if you look at this side, the bottom of the top half, you see that the hole is nowhere near 288. So our gap where we need oil pouring out needs to be 285 to 288. As you come back over here, and in between those two bearings is approximately 285 millimeters to 288. But where they have oil pouring out at, on this case, is about 270, 277, 278 to 284, 285. So their hole is essentially hitting on top of this bearing. That's where the oil is pouring out at, not in the middle where it needs to be. So we're going to address that. So in order to address that, we're going to create either a new hole or open up this hole closer in this way. Okay, so we want our oil hole 285 to about 289, 290. As you can see, we actually need to use the same general hole region, just go straight down, not far off to the left. They did an angle hole to the left, foolishly, when they should have went straight down. Alright, so the hole placement Polaris put was actually a decent spot for a hole, but what they should have done is gone straight down instead of off to the side. I don't see any reason why the case mandated them to go off to the side like that. So, alright, we're going to center punch our starting hole. And then we're going to start with a small drill bit and work our way up. Final hole, we want to be 1/4 inch wide drill bit, but we're going to start with 9/64, then go to 5/32, then 3/16, 7/32, and then 1/4. Might not hit all those in between, but definitely want to go nice and slow, not try to do too much too fast since we're drilling into an engine block. Don't want to mess anything up or break a drill bit. Definitely want lots of cutting lubricant as well. So here we go. Okay, so you can see our first hole went in nice and straight. We do have a little bit of meat in between the two holes. The factory hole shooting out to the left and the hole we just drilled. Maybe that all that meat ends up getting cut out. You can see my finger on both sides there, so there's meat in the middle. As we step up to bigger drill bits until we get to our final 1/4 inch size. Alright, so we've just been working our way up. We started out with the 9/64 drill bit. Then we went to 5/32, then 3/16. Now we're on 7/32. I didn't film every part because it's pretty repetitive, but just making the hole a little bigger each time. If you walk up your drill bits like that, if you have a good cobalt set, these are cobalt, will drill through any metal. You're not going to have any issues trying to go from 0 to 60. So we have a sliver of meat left over, like I was talking about underneath. Oh, there it just went, so literally just broke with my finger, so yeah. As I expected, we just got one big hole now instead of two separate holes, which is fine. Just give more room for the oil to get down on there, on that bearing. Alright, now we've come to the big kahuna. The final 1/4 inch bit. And then we'll chamfer the holes and call her a beauty. Oh, don't want to forget my lubie. Don't want to stick it in without some lube. All right, here we go. 1/4 inch. If it bites like that, you want to come out and go a little slower. Start it before you hit the hole. You don't want to break your bit off. Like that. That big jerk is not usually a good thing. So what I'm doing is, the factory hole wants to send me that way. Well, I want to get it straight because that's where we need the oil, closer to the this side. So as I straighten out my drill bit and go up and down, I'm taking meat off that right side, which is what I want. So that's looking straight down on the hole we just drilled, 1/4 inch. Matches the other ones. The factory hole is still shooting off to the left, so I'll show you how they combined to form one bigger hole, but that's going to do her. Now we're just going to clean up the edges and slap this puppy together. For our chamfer job, I'll be using these nice carbide bits I got on Wish. Cutting oil. Basically just trying to smooth the edge of the hole. See if I can get you guys on the picture a little better. There you go. Oh yeah, you guys got to be riding on the action this time. Alright, so you can see some serious sharp edges and gougy spots, so I'm going to clean all those up with the carbide chamfer. Lots of lube. As you can see, it really makes a nice paste when it grinds the metals. cut a strip off our fine men's apparel so that we can slide her through the old hole and clean it out. There we go. I think she's looking pretty good. Take my glove off and give her the old finger touch. I think we may want to take a little bit more off the underneath part. There's a little material there that doesn't look completely smooth, but I'm not sure if it would actually affect anything. Mainly just want to make sure we don't have any burrs sticking up that'll touch on that bearing. Can always hit it with a little 400 grit sandpaper as well, which is what we shall do. Because yeah, you don't really want to remove material, you just want to smooth it out on top there. So there's a little bit of a burr going on, so not too bad, not too bad. I misspoke on the number of gritties we're going to use. Before I said 400. Don't actually have any out here, but I do have some 320 and some 600, which I don't think is going to do what we're looking for, so I'm going to use the 320. Just take out that little burr right there is the only goal, without putting noticeable scratches or anything in this bearing house. Definitely want to go with the direction of the bearing. Just start out real light and make sure we're not doing damage. Alright, as you can see, we definitely took off a little material. I'm going to hit it with a little 600 just to smooth it out. It's not perfect. Still catches a bit on the nail, but I'm not going to try to go as deep as that is because that would be taking off a lot of material. I mainly just wanted to smooth out the top, which we accomplished. So I don't think that's going to make a big difference, but we'll find out. Anyways, happy with how the hole turned out, and now we're going to put the case back together. Give the case one old final spray with the old air wand, as well as spraying off the whole crank-a-ma-doo over there, and then we'll go slap her together inside.